Part 71. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 701. During the New Year holidays, rumors continued to ferment and intensify. In restaurants, tea houses, brothels, and gambling houses, people were talking about the affair between the ninth master of the Xie family and the Prince of Huainan. The news soon reached the palace. Her Majesty summoned Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao to ask, "Did you know that rumors were spreading in the imperial city these 2 days?" Xie Jin nodded, "I heard some." He and Xian Yuanyao stayed in Jinyuan for the past 2 days and did not go out much. He did hear some rumors from the servants, but he did not care. He did not hear those words in person, so it did not arouse too much emotional fluctuations for the time being. "What do you think?" "I don't have any ideas." Xie Jin smiled, "Let them talk first. Rumors can only hurt those who care about these words. I am thick-skinned and don't care what they say. You don't care, and Xian Yuanyao doesn't care either. I don't really care. I have already thought about all the consequences and made enough psychological preparations, so it's all within expectations." Xian Yuanyao thought about it and also didn't care much. "Besides, I am thick-skinned and rough. If they talk about it, they will talk about it. If it's just a discussion after dinner and a joke, it can be regarded as me and a jin creating some jokes for them. But if some people have dirty mouths, then it won't be a matter of whether to tolerate it or not. But who spread the rumor first, we have to check it later." Xie Jin turned his head and glanced at Xian Yuanyao, silent for a moment. "Whether you care or not, you can only be wronged for a few days for the time being." Xian Yuanyao was calm. He didn't feel wronged. Nan 11 glanced at Rong Yu, who was teaching his son to read, and wanted to ask him what he thought about this matter, but Rong Yu didn't seem to care about these two guys. So Nan 11 said, "How do you plan to solve this matter? Do you need me to give you an imperial decree to grant you marriage? Even if you don't care about rumors, things that need to be solved still need to be solved, and they can't be dragged on like this. After all, their relationship is serious, and it's not as simple as favoring a beautiful boy on a whim. Since it is a lifelong event, you should think about it for a long time. I do need an imperial decree to grant marriage." Xie Jin behaved very well, "Thank you, Your Majesty." "How to grant the imperial decree?" Xie Jin's attitude was very straightforward. "Since I am already Xian Yuanyao, Your Majesty can issue an edict to grant me marriage to Prince Yao." Xian Yuanyao frowned slightly. "Isn't this not good? If it is announced to the world in this way, I am afraid that the proud and dazzling Xie family Ju will instantly become a laughing stock in the imperial city. Didn't Yao Yao remind me all day that I was from Xian Yuanyao?" Xie Jin raised his lips slightly, with an innocent smile on his face. "Why do you feel so sorry now?" Xian Yuanyao was speechless and couldn't help but glare at him. "Your Majesty, please make the decision on this matter." Xie Jin lowered his eyes, "But I have some concerns." Nan 11 said, "What are you worried about?" "If we announce it to the world by imperial decree, I am worried that public opinion will point to Your Majesty and the Lord. You are afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind, so why don't you two get married separately?" Rong Yu glanced over from behind the imperial desk, his voice cold, "Or let Your Majesty grant 2 imperial decrees to marry each of you a wife." Xie Jin's face changed slightly, and his attitude turned to humble and obedient. "I am timid, but your lord is wise." Xian Yuanyao stood silently. His eyes fell on Hao The child was looking at them with a pair of clear eyes. His eyebrows were quiet and cold, and his eyes were so calm that Xian Yuanyao felt that he regarded himself and Xie Jin as two fools. Of course, this might be an illusion. The Lord and His Majesty are busy with government affairs, and I dare not delay His Majesty's time because of my personal affairs. If there is nothing else, I will take my leave first." Xie Jin was very smart and decided to withdraw first. "Your Majesty has the full authority to decide on the marriage, and I have no objection." Xian Yuanyao glanced at him, his lips slightly raised, and a touch of warmth flashed across his eyes. After the two of them left the Dajhan palace, Xian Yuanyao spoke up, in fact, it would be enough to just grant the marriage. Why do you have to emphasize that you are granted the marriage to me? I can't let Yao Yao suffer any loss, and you are a military commander, you must have the dignity of a general. Xiejin hooked his shoulder, his voice casual and leisurely, everyone knows my temper, and there are always some concerns when talking about me. If the marriage is granted in an ambiguous way, those who love to gossip will probably start to make up various versions of the statement, clearly pointing out the roles in the imperial edict of granting marriage, and the world will know that Xiejin is the one granted to Xian Yuanyao, and the Prince of Huainan is the husband who is in a dominant position between the two. In this way, even if they discuss it as a joke, Xian Yuanyao will bear relatively less. Don't worry, Yao Yao. Xiejin smiled, and the color in his eyes flashed. When have you ever let myself suffer any loss? Xian Yuanyao frowned, looked at him expressionlessly, and said nothing. The two returned to Jinyuan soon. Everything seemed calm. As long as they didn't listen to the rumors, they could pretend that nothing had happened. The two stayed in Jinyuan and discussed the matter from beginning to end. On the morning of the third day of the first lunar month, the imperial edict was issued, and the whole imperial city was in an uproar. Her Majesty the Queen personally granted the marriage, betrothing Xiejin, the legitimate son of the Xie Prime Minister, to Xian Yuanyao, the Prince of Huainan. After dinner, people talked more happily. However, Jinyuan had not yet been invaded by rumors, but was first besieged by several young talents who couldn't wait to come to see the show. In the winter, Mo Lingan, who was in charge of the intelligence of Juxiao Pavilion, returned to the imperial city in the biting cold wind. As soon as they met, he mercilessly mocked Xiejin, Xian Yuan Xie? What a unique name. When did the ninth master change his gender? Qin Shu always wore black clothes. Although he looked taciturn, he was best at saying one sentence to kill. The proud and arrogant ninth master of the Xie family actually has such a day. Chu Nanyi waved the fan leisurely, it's a good thing to celebrate. It should be clear. Xian Yuanyao looked at them expressionlessly. The last time he saw these people was in the Queen's Majesty. Oh no, Nan 11 was still Princess Feng at that time and had not yet ascended the throne. He met Mo Lingan and Qin Shu at the so-called flower viewing banquet, which was actually a disguised husband selection banquet, and Chu Nanyi saw them every day. Xian Yuanyao had known Xiejin for quite a while, and he had hardly seen Mo Lingan come back during this period. He did not expect that he would be summoned back this time because of the Queen's imperial decree. Turning his head to look at Xiejin, Xian Yuanyao said, should we throw them all out? Xiejin looked lazy, stretched out his hand to pull Xian Yuanyao to sit aside, and he raised his eyebrows nonchalantly, looking at the few people in front of him who were looking for chaos. Are you all bored? You came here specially for my little thing, be careful that the master will peel off a layer of skin from you. Master Ju is really narcissistic. Mo Lingan poured himself a cup of tea. The imperial edict was only issued this morning. Even if I had wings, I couldn't come back so quickly. I rushed back from the northern border on the 8th day of the 12th lunar month before the new year, and just happened to catch up with this excitement. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 702. Xian Yuanyao was surprised. Why did you come back suddenly? And he came back from the far north? Xian Yuanyao wondered what Mo Lingan was doing in the north. A lot of things happened in the north in the past 2 years. Mo Lingan shook his fan. I came back to report to the master about the situation in the courts of various countries. After a pause, who knew that I would see such a big bustle? Your Majesty is mighty. Chu Nanyi smiled calmly. Dongling has been founded for more than 600 years, and this is the first time that such a special marriage has been granted. Xiejin let them laugh, his expression calm from beginning to end. The Xie family hasn't been lively for a long time. I plan to take advantage of the New Year holiday to hold a flower viewing party in the mansion. invite some young masters from aristocratic families to come to the mansion, and make it lively. Flower viewing party. Amolingen raised his eyebrows. What flowers to appreciate? Siejin said faintly, chrysanthemum. Everyone was silent. Well, this season can probably only appreciate chrysanthemums, otherwise what else can I do? Ajin Xianyuanyao frowned. There's no need to mobilize a large force. Siejin smiled lightly. We must mobilize a large force, otherwise these people will probably forget that I am a tiger that eats people. Chu Nanyi corrected, a fox that eats people. A fox that has practiced for thousands of years. Amolingen added, sure enough, even Prince Yao couldn't escape the fox's palm. Xianyuanyao looked at him expressionlessly. What about the rumors outside? Qin Shu stood in front of the window and turned his head to ask, let it ferment and ignore it. Let them talk about it as much as they want, it's not a big deal. Siejin said indifferently, after all, this kind of thing happens less frequently. When it comes out, it will definitely shock the world, but when everyone knows it, it's not surprising. It's still strange, but everyone will lose their enthusiasm after the novelty of the discussion. When the heat of the matter cools down, Siejin will use some tricks to make sure those boring people shut up. Amolingen knew that what Siejin said was true. There were many new things in the imperial capital, but two men were openly together, and even the imperial decree of marriage was issued. This was definitely the first time in Dongling's 600-year history, so it caused a sensation. When encountering such things, the more they hide, the more they can't wait to dig it out. This is the bad nature of people. When people are used to this matter and there is no mystery worth discussing, the heat will naturally subside. At that time, some means can be used to suppress it. People who are curious but dare not risk their future and life will naturally stop. However, at the moment, rumors are fierce and can kill people invisibly. I am afraid that few people can really ignore and let them ferment, except for the thick-skinned Siejin. They all talk about the books of sages. All scholars call themselves gentlemen and attach great importance to reputation. Who wants to be the one who is discussed and laughed at? But then again, Amolingen looked at Siejin and Xianyuanyao, and said in a deep voice, are you too serious? Siejin looked at him coldly. Do you think I'm joking? The imperial edict has been issued, and you still ask such a naive question? Amolingen said, then the Xie family will have no successor. Who said that? Xianyuanyao frowned. Are the children born by his half-brothers not descendants of the Xie family? Amolingen was silent. Although those half-brothers were also descendants of the Xie family, they did not have a good relationship with Siejin. Would the Xie family really be passed on to the sons born by those useless things in the future? However, there was no need to consider the inheritance of the family too early. Amolingen looked at Xianyuanyao seriously. What about the son Yao? Don't you care about descendants? Maybe I cared before. Xianyuanyao was very serious, but now, Ajin is more important to me than descendants. The surprise and sweetness came so unexpectedly. Siejin was stunned, then his mouth curled up, his eyes full of surprise and tenderness. He really didn't expect the little leopard to be so frank, admitting it directly in front of so many people, without hiding or hiding anything, so frankly. It really surprised him. Amolingen's mouth twitched. Well, he shouldn't ask this question at all. Someone who has been with Xiehuli for a long time, still expect him to be reserved? Haven't you heard that people who keep bad company will be corrupted? After being influenced by Xiehuli for a long time, even the most innocent people will be corrupted by Xiehuli. Before the imperial decree granted the marriage, rumors were rife. Didn't you check who spread the rumors? No need to check. It's too easy to find out who spread them. Siejin smiled faintly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. In addition to the Lord and the Queen, the people who know about my relationship with Yao Yao include Chu Nanyi, the Qingyang guards in the Dajhan Palace, Yin Yu, Yin Chuang. These people are all around the Lord. It's impossible for them to be bored enough to spread our affairs. Amolingan shook his fan and nodded, that makes sense. The Lord is very strict with his subordinates. Which of the guards brought from the Great Zhou is not well trained and knows the strict rules? No one dared to speak nonsense. Xiejin said calmly, Prince Ji and Chu Hongii of Prince Jing's mansion also know about it, as does Her Royal Highness the Princess, but they have no reason to disclose it. Amolingan raised his eyebrows, so what is your conclusion? Apart from these people, only the Xie family often saw Yao Yao entering and leaving the Xie mansion, and knew that he stayed in my Jing garden for a few days. Xiejin said calmly, my parents can't go out and spread the word, so who else do we need to think about? Chu Nanyi's face was gentle and calm, and he didn't seem surprised at all. Amolingan was not surprised either, but his expression was still a little strange. Can't your brothers be quiet? If they had a little brain, they should know that it is the best choice to pamper you at this time. They are as stupid as pigs. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao are together, and they will never have children in this life. Who will inherit the Xie family business in the future? Haven't those brothers ever thought about it? Bastards are good or not, after all, they are also the descendants of Prime Minister Xie. Whoever can pamper Xiejin at this time may benefit from it in the future. After all, fat water does not flow to outsiders. But if they continue to commit suicide, with Xiejin's temperament, maybe he will bring a child back from outside to raise and pass the Xie family to his own children in the future. He really has no brains, no wonder he can only be a bastard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 703. Qinshu, Chu Nanyi, and Amolingan were busy and did not stay in Jinyuan for too long. After the three left, Xiejin turned to look at Xian Yuanyao, his eyes shining. Yao Yao. Xian Yuanyao raised his eyes to look at him. What? Yao Yao. Xiejin reached out and pulled him over, holding his waist, kissing his lips, with obvious joy and emotion in his voice. I didn't expect you to be so frank. I am both happy and touched. Touched? Xian Yuanyao didn't think there was anything to be touched about. You can put down your pride and dignity for me, so I should face it calmly. There is nothing to hide, Xian Yuanyao said, besides, many people outside know it. Should I deny it at this time? It's not a question of denial, but wait. Xiejin sighed and laughed. You said that I weigh more in your heart than your offspring. This sentence gave me too much shock. I don't know how to express my feelings for a while. Xian Yuanyao looked at him inexplicably. Are you stimulated by the rumors outside? When I decided to be with you, I had already given up the issue of offspring inheritance. Doesn't this prove my feelings? You have to say it with your mouth and tell others in person that offspring is more important than you, so you feel touched. Psycho. It's not that they realized belatedly that two men can't have children after they got together. They have already accepted the fact. Just because he said it truthfully, they started to be moved. Xiejin was silent for a moment. Although actions are more real and reliable than words, lovers occasionally need sweet words to embellish it, just like the icing on the cake. Xian Yuanyao said, what should we do now? What should we do? Xiejin pulled him to sit down on the bed. It's hard to get a few days off, so of course we should seize the opportunity to cultivate our relationship and do more interesting things. Xian Yuanyao asked knowingly, which things are more interesting? Of course, interesting things. Xiejin smiled cunningly, suddenly got up and pressed Xian Yuanyao on the bed, and the two fell between the quilts. What do you think? Xian Yuanyao stared at him. You should restrain yourself. Yao Yao doesn't like it? Xian Yuanyao frowned and thought about it, trying to convince himself to be a gentleman, but when he met those beautiful phoenix eyes, the smile in her eyes instantly made him indulge in it. Xian Yuanyao turned over neatly and instantly switched the positions of the two people. Listen to my command today, don't resist, cooperate with me obediently, otherwise you will be punished by the family law. Xiejin smiled brightly, yes, sir. Rumors were rampant, and all major restaurants and tea houses were discussing it heatedly. Most of the discussions on the surface were directed at Xiejui and Xian Yuanyao, only involving this rebellious relationship, not involving other things. The discussion in the restaurant and tea house was like this, a little more subtle. Xiejui actually likes a man, and the imperial edict has been issued. It seems that the truth of this matter has been confirmed. It's like a dream. I used to only hear that some dignitaries had little unknown hobbies in private, like to visit brothels, keep a little boy, etc. I didn't expect that the Dongling dynasty would usher in such a ridiculous marriage. Two men falling in love is really a big joke. Yes, it's really jaw-dropping. The world is going downhill, the world is going downhill. In the brothels, similar discussions were more explicit. Two men falling in love and even getting married is simply shocking. One is the legitimate son of a powerful official, and the other is a royal noble. Guess who is superior and who is inferior between the two? Need I say that? The Prince of Waynan is a dignified military commander, how can he be willing to be suppressed? And the imperial decree clearly stated that the ninth son of the Xie family was given to the Prince of Waynan. Isn't it obvious who is superior and who is inferior? Tisk 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 tisk, this young master has grown up so big, and this is really the first time I have seen such a strange thing. It is really eye-opening. That Xiejin is known for being fearless and not taking anyone seriously, but this time he has fallen to the point of being suppressed. It is true that the law of nature will bring good fortune. No one can escape the punishment of heaven. Lord Xie must be so angry that he must vomit blood. His only precious son was given to another man as a wife. He has been so powerful for most of his life, but in the end, he fell into a big fall because of his own son. If I were Prime Minister Xie, I would have no desire to live and would want to die in front of the ancestral tablets. Who said it was not true? In some more secret places, the style of discussion was obviously different. The son of the Xie family is now in charge of the Ministry of Justice. He is very favored by the regent and the queen. Prime Minister Xie is the most powerful minister in the cabinet. The father and son are both very powerful. Is the regent afraid of the Xie family? What does it mean? Lord Su means that the queen's decree is to deliberately marry the son of the Xie family to the Prince of Waynan, so that the Xie family will have no successor. The mind of the emperor is unpredictable. Who knows what kind of killing trick will be waiting behind the excessive favor? The world of Dongling is named Xianyuan. The queen deliberately married Xiejin to Xian Yuanyao, which may be a warning. But I heard that they were very close before the imperial decree came down, and their relationship was also particularly close on weekdays. Is it possible that there is really some hidden love? No matter how they feel in private, as long as there is no imperial decree to grant their marriage, no one dares to say anything. But now with this imperial decree, they are destined to be involved with each other in this life, and there is no possibility of marrying and having children. Do you think this is normal? If it is just to suppress the Xie family, how innocent is the Prince of Waynan? Xiejin cannot marry, and the Prince of Waynan has also lost his hope of marrying. The Prince of Waynan is innocent? Don't forget that the military power in the hands of the King of Waynan is not small. Do you think the current monarch has no idea? As soon as these words came out, the air was quiet for a moment. Then someone said in a deep tone, the father and son of the Xie family hold great power in the court, and they are glorious and unscrupulous. Xiejin has been in the limelight in the past 2 years. The court has been purged by him, and all the people who should be offended have been offended. Is the regent planning to get rid of him? I also have such an opinion. The regent should have cut off the bloodline inheritance in order to weaken the power of the Xie family. It's cruel enough. Another person said, the father and son of the Xie family have too much power. If they are left alone, I am afraid the consequences will be disastrous. Imagine. In addition, the father and son of the king of Waynan also hold military power, are brave and good at fighting, and the soldiers in the army are loyal to them. If they are not restrained, the future regent will also be afraid of the king of Waynan's self-reliance. I think so too. Regardless of whether Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao really have a shameful relationship or some other hidden secrets, the imperial edict issued by Her Majesty is equivalent to directly cutting off the incense and retreat of the Xie family and the king of Waynan's mansion. It is simply killing two birds with one stone, eliminating the future troubles for her son without any effort. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 704. Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao stayed in Jinyuan. Although they had not heard the outside discussions with their own ears, Mo Lingan, who had just returned, leisurely visited restaurants, tea houses, brothels, casinos, and even private places where officials gathered. We walked around all over. It took an evening and midnight. I heard everything I should have heard, and I also heard what I shouldn't have heard. As a person in charge of intelligence collection and control, it is easy to inquire about some news and rumors. Moreover, he does so with the mentality of watching a good show. Of course, having fun alone is not as good as having fun with everyone. When the rumors caught my ears, I naturally wanted to share them with the two protagonists in this matter. So early the next morning, when Mo Lingan visited Xie's Jinyuan for the second time, he recited the various versions of the discussions outside to Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao. Although I cannot say that I missed every word, the general meaning was fully expressed. After hearing this, Xie Jin was silent for a while, and then he smiled without any surprise. What kind of people are raised by the soil and water? These words are indeed not false at all. Most of the people sitting in the tea house are ordinary people. Rich and powerful people like to go to restaurants. Whether they are ordinary people in the tea house or wealthy dignitaries, they all like to talk about some new things after tea and dinner, and discuss them with gusto. When they meet MRS when something shocking happens, it is inevitable to criticize it impassionedly. This is nothing. After all, scholars read the books of sages. No matter how they behave in private, they must at least follow the standards of the sages on the surface, and things like cut sleeves will not be accepted by the world at any time. Therefore, criticism and abuse are also normal reactions. A man who often hangs out in brothels is naturally full of dirty talk, even to the point of irritating him. Xie Jin just laughed it off. Since the two men decided to be together, there must be some things that need to be discussed and speculated on. For example, regarding the question of who goes up and who goes down, those men who like to play tricks in brothels will definitely be eager to have sex. Of course, some people are indeed curious. It's just that no one will satisfy his curiosity. As for elevating the relationship between the two people to the level of suspicion and suppression by Her Majesty the Lord and the Queen, you don't need to think about it to know that those scheming ministers in the court have begun to habitually speculate on the monarch's heart. At the slightest sign of trouble, they would become suspicious. It seemed that apart from fear, the only thing left between the monarch and his ministers was suppression. Honor and favor were only expedient, and trust was also for flattery. It seemed that the monarch had nothing to do every day and was always on guard against his ministers. Then we simply don't do anything anymore. We no longer need to approve the memorials and no longer deal with major national affairs. All day long, we just find ways to scheming with the ministers in the court, fight to the death, and both sides suffer, until all the noble and prominent families follow. When the royal family is wiped out, will all suspicions disappear? Xie Jin discovered that the court had not been cleared yet. Although all the corrupt, bribery, and incompetent people have been found out, there are still some ministers who like to talk nonsense, and like to speculate on the emperor's heart when they have nothing to do but to speculate on the king's heart. After this incident is over, I think it's time for the ministers to sort things out again. Siejin sat on the couch and drank tea, his voice cold. I don't think about business all day long. I always make trouble and criticize behind my back like the market ladies. Your Majesty, you really should find out and give them 100 slaps to cure their self-righteousness. Emolingon glanced at him. You have only been in the official career for a short time, and you have already begun to act like an official. It seems that you are born to take the path of a powerful minister. Really? Siejin Feng raised his eyebrows. Heroes have similar views. Thank you for the compliment. Emolingon sneered. He still felt that the officialdom was not as comfortable as being in the world. He could go wherever he wanted, and he was free and unfettered. He did not have to listen to those old-fashioned ministers reciting sutras all day long, so his ears were quiet. However, everyone has his own ambitions, and people like Siejin should be raised among the brocade. He said, I'm going to the palace later, will you two go? Siejin said in a casual voice, my lord probably doesn't want to see me these 2 days. Emolingon was surprised. Why? Because he wants to develop a relationship with Her Majesty the Queen. Emoling was quiet for a moment. The relationship between the Lord and Her Majesty the Queen is deep, and there should be no need to cultivate it. My lord is very possessive and likes peace and quiet. When he has nothing to do, he likes to stay with Her Majesty the Queen in the Dajhan Palace, criticizing books, chatting, or reading books. Anyway, no one will disturb him, Siejin said, and now it's the New Year's holiday and it's rare that we don't have to go to court early. Of course, Your Majesty is happy to enjoy the warmth with His Majesty. Emolingon frowned. Then if I go to the palace today to pay my respects, wouldn't it be inappropriate? Siejin asked, is the situation urgent? It's not urgent, Emolingon said. Anyway, the situation in various countries will not affect Dongling for a while. It doesn't make much difference to report 1 day earlier and 1 day later. Siejin nodded. In that case, you can make arrangements yourself. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 705. Siejin and Xian Yuanyao stayed in Jing Garden for 4 days, completely ignoring the heated discussions from the outside world. On the 5th day of the first lunar month, Siejin invited the famous young masters of the imperial capital to come to Xia Mansion for a small gathering. No matter how badly things fermented in the past 2 days, Siejin is still the legitimate son of the Xia family. Who dares not to come to Siejuyu's invitation? Besides, in addition to being the 9th master of the Xia family, he is also the minister of the Ministry of Justice, holding the power of the 3rd rank, and is also a favorite of the king, at least on the surface. He acts without scruples, and there is no benefit in offending him. It's called flower appreciation, but when men are together, they either talk about their studies, their official careers, or talk about everything, but the flower appreciation can be ignored throughout the whole process. It's just that what happened in the past 2 days is a bit special, which makes people lose interest in talking about their studies and official careers for a while, and just feel like sitting on pins and needles. Young Master Mo is here. Siejin was sitting in the flower hall facing the lake in the back garden of Jinyuan. The young masters who had arrived were sitting quietly drinking tea. This place was cool in summer and really cold in winter. The young masters couldn't help but want to tidy up their clothes. When they heard the servants' report, everyone was slightly startled for a moment, thinking that it was young Master Mo Suanwu of the Mo family. Because the Mo family is one of the 4 major families, although Mo Suanwu has been a little quiet in the past 2 years, the importance of the Mo family is still not to be underestimated. Given Siejin's status, it is likely that he would invite Mo Suanwu to be his guest. However, everyone was wrong. The person who came was actually Emolingon, the son of a mere minister of works. Siejin smiled lightly, set up a seat for young Master Mo. Yes. Emolingon, wearing a brocade robe, walked along the corridor with brisk steps and a bright smile on his face like a warm spring breeze. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. He walked into the flower hall calmly and nodded slightly to Xiejin and everyone. "Your Majesty's granting of marriage is truly an honor. Ling'an would like to congratulate you first. Master Xieju is indeed a favorite of the Emperor. This unprecedented honor is truly enviable," Mo Ling'an said, smiling as he presented a pair of mandarin duck pillows. "I came in a hurry and didn't have time to prepare. I will send you some better gifts on your wedding day in the future." As soon as the words fell, the hall instantly fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at each other, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. They had been sitting for so long, and no one dared to bring up this sensitive topic. Everyone pretended to be stupid and acted as if they knew nothing. They didn't expect Mo Ling'an to be so bold, as if he was afraid that the world would not be in chaos. Xiejin raised his hand and asked someone to accept it. "Thank you for your trouble." Mo Ling'an sat down on the side, fanning himself, and looked up at the faces in the hall that were not unfamiliar but definitely not very familiar, and smiled faintly. Everyone came quite early. Everyone's expressions were subtle. The marriage granted by the imperial decree is now making a lot of noise outside, and the 9th master of the Xie family has become a laughing stock. They are always nervous when they are invited to be guests today. In front of outsiders, they can talk and laugh at others easily and without any guilt, but in front of the main person, they will inevitably feel guilty. So when they heard Mo Ling'an making fun of the marriage granted by the imperial decree so openly in front of everyone, and even arrogantly offering a mandarin duck pillow, everyone was instantly surprised and almost unbelievable. "Ninth master, don't you want to introduce them?" Mo Ling'an looked at the uncomfortable expressions of everyone and turned to look at Xiejin. "Are these people not all empty-handed?" When these words came out, everyone's expression was inevitably stern again, and they looked at Mo Ling'an as if they were looking at a monster. If they didn't come empty-handed, would they also send gifts like him? What if this moody 9th master Xie cut them into pieces? "Master Ju, Prince Ji is here too." Everyone in the flower hall relaxed, and sincerely thanked Prince Ji, who arrived in time to help them out. Xian Yuanqi was dressed appropriately, wearing a blue robe inside and a black fox fur cloak with a white fur collar outside. He was extremely beautiful, tall, and elegant, and looked very noble. Everyone in the living room stood up to greet him. "Please take a seat, everyone." "No need to be polite," Xian Yuanqi smiled, and his voice sounded peaceful and gentle, without the airs of a royal prince. "I heard that Her Majesty the Queen has granted marriage, so I came to congratulate Master Ju. This is the mandarin duck that I carefully selected, and I give it to Master Ju to show my appreciation." The flower hall was quiet again. "Another mandarin duck." Xian Yuanqi opened the brocade box, and a jade mandarin duck with delicate texture and lustrous color lay quietly on the red silk in the brocade box. It was obvious that it was worth a lot of money at first glance. Prince Ji was of noble status, and the Prince Jing's mansion was now the most prominent mansion among the royal princes. The things he gave were naturally not ordinary. But when everyone heard him say this and gave such a gift at this time, their expressions became more complicated for a while, and it was hard to describe. Xiejin smiled calmly. "Thank you, Prince Ji, for the expense." "You're welcome, and it didn't cost me," Xian Yuanqi said in a light tone. "This prince just took one from the warehouse of the palace, as long as Juya likes it." Everyone drank and drank tea, not knowing how to react. Prince Ji said that he carefully selected it, and then he took one from the warehouse. Well, these are not the point. The point is whether this gift is not appropriate. It seems full of irony. Xiejin was not polite and ordered someone to take the gift. "Prince Ji, please take a seat." Xian Yuanqi nodded, and sat down elegantly behind the long table near the first seat. He raised his eyes slightly and glanced at the crowd. "Why don't you see Prince Yao?" The air was chilly. "What's the matter?" Xian Yuanyao was not here, so they could barely keep calm. When Prince Yao came, they would be so embarrassed that they didn't know where to put their hands and feet. He went to the military camp and will come later. Xiejin's tone was leisurely, and a little gentleness could be heard. The military camp is different from the court. The commander needs to supervise the training from time to time. Everyone lowered their eyes. Gentle. It must be an illusion, or Xiejin deliberately made this indifferent expression, but in fact he must hate Xian Yuanqi in his heart. Xian Yuanqi nodded slowly, indicating that he understood. Chu Nanyi didn't come. He should be here soon, Xiejin said, looking up at him seriously. Let me remind you that although Chu Nanyi is a bastard, you should call him second brother instead of calling him by name. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Prince Qi is a royal noble, and Chu Nanyi is just a little bastard. How can they be compared? The crown prince's wife is a legitimate daughter. Calling him second brother is already a great honor. It shouldn't matter whether Prince Qi calls her that or not, right? There is a difference between legitimate and illegitimate children. Chu Nanyi. Chu Nanyi is here. Someone shouted, and the voice stopped abruptly. Everyone turned to look. Chu Nanyi was as elegant as Mo Lingan, and he looked handsome in a brocade robe. His face, which was not inferior to that of a noble son of an aristocratic family, was filled with an elegant smile, and he looked like a spring breeze. He did not have the shabby, dull, and cowardly look that a bastard should have. To be honest, the young masters present felt a little uncomfortable, because most of the people who were invited by Xiejin to be guests were legitimate sons of the family except Chu Nanyi and Xian Yuanchen, who had a good relationship in private. In the eyes of the legitimate son, the status of the illegitimate son and daughter is only slightly better than that of the maidservants in the family. They have to rely on their legitimate mother and legitimate sons and daughters for clothing, food, and daily life. Their fate is not in their own hands. They have to get the consent of their legitimate mother and legitimate brother for anything they want to do. This is an insurmountable gap in status. But Chu Nanyi, the illegitimate son, lives a more glorious life than the legitimate sons of many families. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 706. The Chu family has an open-minded family tradition. Ms. Chu is recognized in the circle of the rich and powerful as a tolerant and easygoing person. It can be seen that Chu Nanyi also lives a comfortable life at home. Not only that, he and Xiejin also have an incomprehensible tacit understanding. This actually makes many legitimate sons of noble families jealous. There is no need to elaborate on what kind of person Xiejin is. There are not many people who can catch his eye. On the contrary, those who have offended him in the past have a deeper impression of him. This person who used to look down on the crown prince of the Prince of Wei's palace is close to Chu Nanyi. On the other hand, how many legitimate sons of other noble families want to have a good relationship with Xiejin but can never get recognition? So it is understandable that they are not happy, but they didn't expect Xiejin to ask Prince Qi to call Chu Nanyi second brother. Even if it is a joke, it makes people feel outrageous. Master Ju is indeed a favorite of the Emperor. Chu Nanyi smiled faintly. This marriage is unprecedented and unparalleled. It is an opportunity that no one else has, and it deserves blessings. As he spoke, he handed over the gift in his hand. This Mandarin duck brush washer is a rare item. I give it to Master Ju as a token of my appreciation. I hope Master Ju will accept it. Mandarin duck brush washer? Everyone looked closely and saw that it was indeed a pair of mandarin ducks leaning against each other, with a white background and blue and white carved patterns on the brush washer. Although it was not as valuable as the jade mandarin ducks given by Prince Chi, it was exquisitely shaped and had a good meaning. If it was given to a newlywed couple, the meaning would indeed be beautiful. The expressions of the young masters were no longer subtle. Did these people have a plan in advance and deliberately come to add insult to injury? Xiejin smiled casually. Have you all agreed today to send me mandarin ducks? Agree. Chu Nanyi was slightly surprised, as if he had no idea what was going on. He turned his eyes and said, are there others who also sent mandarin ducks? Xian Yuanqi and Mo Lingan nodded slowly. Chu Nanyi said, so we are in sync, or do heroes think alike? Mo Lingan said, it's better to be in sync. Your Majesty's marriage is a great honor, and you should give the highest blessings. Xian Yuanqi gestured to Chu Nanyi and asked him to sit down in the seat next to him. We have the same idea. Chu Nanyi smiled calmly, walked over, brushed his clothes and sat down. His movements were as gentle and calm as flowing water, without any restraint or tension. The gentleman did not ignore his movements, and they were silent for a while. Everyone should be here. Thank you for coming here today. I'll toast to you all. Xiejin raised his glass and said, some of you are my friends, some are my colleagues, and some are my colleagues' sons. Everyone was startled and raised their glasses to clink with him. For example, Master Chen, Master Mo, and Master Su. Xiejin took a sip of wine and leaned against the pillar in the hall. Your fathers are all my subordinates. They are always in the court. In fact, according to reason, I should have called everyone together early to get to know each other and make it easier for us to do things in the court in the future. The faces of the masters changed involuntarily and they looked at each other calmly. People outside have always been unfriendly to me. They say all kinds of things. Some say that the ninth son of the Xie family is arrogant and domineering, and looks down on everyone. Some say that Xiejin is unruly and moody. Some say that I am rebellious and have a perverse temperament. I was indeed a little reckless and acted too willfully in the past. I have carefully reflected on myself and think that I should change my temper in the future. Change my temper? Mo Lingan turned to look at him in surprise. Did I hear it right? The arrogant and unruly ninth son of the Xie family would actually reflect on himself. Xian Yuanqi nodded. It's really hard to believe. I can understand Chu Nanyi. When serving as an official in the court, one must restrain oneself by the laws of the family and the country, and only by setting an example can one restrain others. Especially since Zhu Ye is now in an important position in the Ministry of Justice, he should be a loyal official who abides by the law. Mr. Chu is right, that's the reason. Xiejin sighed. The investigation of corrupt officials a while ago was a bit of a big deal, and I offended many people. Later, I thought about it carefully. If I get any evidence in the hands of others in the future, those who were offended by me in the past will definitely retaliate with all their might, so it is better to be low-key and humble in dealing with people. Everyone was silent, and they were a little confused about his intentions. Chu Nanyi raised his eyebrows. So Zhu Ye is afraid. It's not that I'm afraid, but I think I should be more cautious in my future actions, and I can't be so willful and reckless as before. Xiejin smiled, and his smile was a bit dangerous like a fox, but as the Minister of the Ministry of Justice, I am in charge of criminal laws and regulations. It seems that I should understand the law more, so as to provide more convenience for future case handling. The young masters turned their heads to look at the lake at the same time. They always felt that the flower hall near the lake was really cold. It was a great torture to stay here and chat in the season. How could they have any leisure time? In addition, what Xiejin said made it impossible for them to maintain a relaxed and leisurely mood. Speaking of the law, I accidentally heard some bad discussions these 2 days. Chu Nanyi put down the wine cup and fanned it with a fan. It seems that someone is guessing the king's heart and criticizing Her Majesty the Queen and the regent behind his back. The cold wind blew in their faces, and everyone felt like falling into an ice cellar. Some people even wanted Chu Nanyi to put down the fan and stop pretending to be so elegant. Could they also consider whether their bodies could bear it? There is really nothing you can do about criticizing your majesty behind your back. Xian Yuanqi frowned. Although anyone who criticizes your majesty without permission deserves to die, the law does not punish everyone. Everyone is saying the same thing, so we cannot arrest everyone. Xiejin took a sip of wine and slowly shook his head. This is exactly what I will do next. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 707. Xian Yuanqi raised his eyebrows. I would like to hear the details. As an official appointed by the court, I eat the emperor's salary and share the emperor's worries. Xiejin said calmly, I definitely cannot tolerate such things as criticizing the emperor. Moreover, I am also in charge of the Ministry of Justice, so I can't turn a blind eye. Xian Yuanqi nodded, that's right. Fortunately, I can start with the officials. Xiejin smiled calmly, his tone was calm, and he even sounded particularly gentle and harmless. All those who criticize the emperor, I can write them down one by one, and I will always be able to catch solid evidence in the future, and then I will slowly deal with them. The faces of the young masters changed slightly, and their bodies unconsciously sat up a little straighter. The wind blowing from the lake was even colder, brushing against the cheeks like a steel knife scraping flesh, and it hurt a lot. It is said that managing the family is the key to governing the country and the world. It is the basic responsibility of officials to manage their families. If they cannot even control the mouths of their wives, children, and elders, how can they seek welfare for the people? This official will have no future. Xiejin raised his eyebrows, slowly swept his eyes across the faces of the people present, and said in a lazy voice, do you think this is the truth? Mo Lingon said, officials can control their own mouths and their families' mouths, but they can't stop the gossip of the public. The gossip of the public. Xiejin smiled nonchalantly, can you manage your own 9 clans? The air in the flower hall dropped a few degrees, and it was freezing cold, like the severe cold of the 39th day of winter. Mo Lingon seemed a little dissatisfied. Officials are busy with court affairs all day long, and they can control their families, but the 9 clans are involved in a wide range. How can they manage it? If you can't even manage your own 9 clans, then there is definitely no way to manage the people of the world. Xiejin said calmly, in this case, it is better to take off your official uniform and go home to farm. As soon as the voice fell, the flower hall was instantly silent. The young masters were actually more dissatisfied in their hearts. They already understood why Xiejin called them here today. Wasn't it just to warn everyone to keep their mouths shut? But he was just a minister of the Ministry of Justice among young people of the same generation. His position as a third-rank minister was indeed quite remarkable. But a third-rank minister was not really a man who could command hundreds of people among the civil and military officials in the court, and he was still young. How could he speak in the court? He wanted to shut everyone's mouths, which was simply a fantasy and overestimating his own abilities. Although I am not a high-ranking official, I have the trust and respect of His Majesty and the Regent, and I have the right to enter and exit the Dajhan Palace and the Imperial Study at any time. If I want to impeach an official, I will definitely find sufficient evidence. Xiejin smiled faintly. Shangning is far away from the Tiandu Imperial City, and I can investigate him thoroughly, let alone the Imperial City under the feet of the Emperor. The faces of the young masters changed. As long as I want to investigate, there is no evidence that I can't find. I can definitely do it in less than a month for those I want to bring down. Xiejin always maintained a lazy and casual smile. The crime of criticizing the emperor alone is enough to make the life of the bad-mouthed person in danger. For those with serious circumstances, it is not a problem to implicate the 9 clans. Silence. Long silence. Deathly silence. At the table, someone's hand holding the wine cup began to turn pale, and I don't know if it was frozen or scared. Everyone, you may as well convey my words when you go back. I will start to investigate openly and secretly from tomorrow. Siejin picked up the wine cup, took a sip elegantly, and his voice became more friendly. If you commit the same offense again after my reminder, it means you are committing the offense knowingly. People who are familiar with me know that the ninth master of the Xie family is not someone who is easy to mess with. Finally, someone spoke up during the dinner, with a nervous tone. During the holidays in the past 2 years, my father has been staying at home to be filial to his grandmother and has never said anything about the rumors outside. Please investigate clearly, ninth master. Siejin raised his lips. Really? That's good. Su Jun, the son of Lord Su, the assistant minister of the Ministry of War, said, in fact, I have heard some discussions in the past 2 days, but most of them are discussions among ordinary people after dinner, and I have never heard of it among officials. Ordinary people dare not offend the Holy Majesty, and the discussions are mostly just for fun. There is a limit after all, Siejin said. We can't shut everyone up. After all, the current queen and the regent are tolerant and wise, and will do our utmost. The people are given freedom of speech, but officials have read the books of sages and should know etiquette and laws. Those who knowingly violate the law will be punished more severely. Su Jun's face was pale, and his hand holding the wine glass was a little unsteady. Juye is right. Fortunately, my father has always been strict with himself and would never dare to criticize your majesty and the regent behind their backs. He will never make such a mistake in the future. Siejin nodded casually. Lord Su is an upright official and has always acted with discretion. He knows what can and cannot be done. This official, I have a good impression of him, and I think it will not be difficult for him to be promoted in the future. Su Jun was delighted and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you, Master Ju. When the others heard this, they took the opportunity to express their loyalty, and promised one after another that they would remind their families to keep their mouths shut after returning, never speak nonsense, never criticize the monarch, and be loyal to His Majesty, serve the court, and be a good parent official for the people. It was too cold in the flower hall, and they were worried that if they sat here for another half a day, they would be frozen into ice sculptures. Siejin got a satisfactory result and stopped making things difficult. He smiled gently and asked, "It's getting late. Are there any of you staying for lunch? I'll ask the servants to prepare. I have something else to do, so I can only disappoint Master Ju's kindness first." Master Chen stood up and carefully moved his frozen legs and feet. "I'll invite Master Ju to my home another day. I hope Master Ju will show me the honor when the time comes." Siejin smiled gently and amiably, "As long as I don't oppose you, I will always show my favor." Mr. Chen followed with a smile, "Then I'll take my leave first, and I'll host a banquet for Master Ju another day." Siejin nodded. Others also took their leave and cordially invited Siejin to visit them another day. When most of the visitors had left, Amolingan slowly spoke, "As expected of Master Sieju, your way of doing things is admirable." Siejin said, "You're flattering. Officials in the court only want promotion, a smooth career, and glory to their family. If they want more, they want to have many wives and concubines and have many children. But they fear many things, such as losing their jobs, being beheaded, implicated in the 9 clans, and having their life's gains turned to ashes." Xian Yuanqi turned his head and looked at Siejin. "Of course, no matter what they want or what they fear, it's a joke to others, but Master Ju of the Xie family said these things, and every word was 1,000 pounds of weight, and no one could ignore it. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 708. Siejin's official position is indeed not high among so many officials. Above the minister, there are the prime minister and chief minister, as well as ministers at the center of power in the cabinet, and many officials with higher grades than him. Compared with the Ministry of Personnel, the Ministry of Justice does not have the power and positions that people fear. After all, It is the Ministry of Personnel that controls the promotion, rewards and punishments of officials. However, the ninth master of the Xia family is currently favored by the Holy Spirit. The regent secretly gives him much greater power than he does openly. The Wei Palace is almost planted in his hands. The Ningyuan family and Su, one of the four major families in the imperial capital, his home, was also confiscated in his hands. Last year, under the instructions of the regent, he found out one official after another who was corrupt, perverted the law, and was incompetent. The whole court was trembling with fear because of him. For 2 months, everyone was in danger. So no one dared to ignore the warnings and threats he gave. The ninth master of the Xia family is known to have a bad temper, and his methods are also known to be ruthless. From winning the first prize to breaking the Yun family case, Xie Jin has been in the limelight in the past 2 years. Whether in the court or in the imperial city, he is a powerful figure. The limelight is unrivaled. Which of the many ministers is not extremely afraid of him? Even though everyone always takes it for granted that the most intelligent person will be injured and the most prosperous person will decline, but before he declines, the threat still cannot be underestimated. Who could have predicted when his decline would come? Therefore, the right way is to be strict with oneself and protect oneself wisely. Today's move is indeed effective. These legitimate sons are not fools. Let's talk about the stakes when we go back. The ministers in the court will naturally control their families and relatives for the sake of life and death. Chu Nanyi frowned, but for the time being, we can only restrain this group of people. There are also some people who are not officials among the 18 tribes, not to mention the 9 tribes. How should we deal with the criticism of these people? Xie Jin smiled lazily. So, this is the gap between you and me. Chu Nanyi was silent for a moment, then smiled gracefully and said, I would like to listen to Master Ju's advice. It is said that the people do not fight against the officials. The reason why the common people dare to criticize is because there are too many people talking about this matter, and among them there are not a few dignitaries. They all have the mentality of watching a good show, and they follow what others say, so they are noisy in the world. Naturally, the common people were emboldened and joined in the fun. Xie Jin took a sip of wine and said in a loose voice, when all the officials and family members gradually calmed down, there were fewer people discussing the matter among the powerful. Even if ordinary people are still curious, they just talk and laugh innocuously, and they don't have the courage to say more words of criticism and abuse. As long as people are living a good life, who wants to get into trouble? It is true that ordinary people like to join in the fun, but it is natural to fear death, and it is also natural to fear the powerful. Most people are not stupid enough to get themselves into trouble just to join in the fun. Except for very few idiots. Therefore, this matter does not actually require excessive force to suppress it. As long as the right method is used, the rumors will naturally disappear over time. Besides, I'm not afraid of being criticized. Xie Jin slowly put down his wine cup, stood up, and relaxed gracefully. In this world, whether you are alive or dead, you will inevitably be judged by others, okay? There are all kinds of bad things. Thinking so much is just asking for trouble. Taking pleasure in time is what a smart person should do. Rumors must be controlled, but they must be controlled reasonably. You cannot forcefully silence everyone, as this will only be counterproductive. Mo Lingen was puzzled. Since you are not afraid of being criticized, why did you do this today? Wouldn't it be better to just ignore it and let it ferment? Of course not. If you let it ferment, it will only get worse and get out of control. Xie Jin glanced at him and said, if I get scolded, I will scold you a few times. Anyway, I have thick skin and rough flesh, and it doesn't hurt or itch. But we cannot allow Her Majesty the Queen and the Lord to make groundless speculations about this matter, let alone disrupt the morale of the army. Mo Lingen was silent for a moment, as if he finally understood his intention, and his eyes gradually became clear. The common people are just watching the fun. Whether they are interested or criticizing, it is only about the relationship between two men and will not involve sensitive matters such as government affairs. Since the officials are accustomed to guessing the king's heart, their attitude towards this matter is more to guess the king's intentions. Few people will simply discuss this relationship that is not allowed in the world. If they speculate too much, it will affect the king's heart. Going to the military camp will definitely cause instability in the morale of the army. After all, the other protagonist in this matter, Xianyuan Yao, is the general of the army and the soul of the Obsidian army. To put it bluntly, Xiejin firstly wanted to stabilize the court, and secondly, he wanted to stabilize the morale of the military. As for this relationship, it is up to the world to judge. As long as it does not involve any conspiracy theories, he can completely ignore it. As expected of Mr. Sieju, who is generous-minded. He has a deep mind and a flexible mind. He can tolerate things that others cannot tolerate, and can solve problems that others cannot. Mo Lingon raised his hand slightly. I admire you. Siejin smiled calmly. That's easy to say. It seems that my prince should have a good relationship with Mr. Sieju. Xianyuan Qi stood up, as if he was planning to leave. If you offend Mr. Ju, there will be endless troubles. Being a friend of Mr. Ju has many benefits. Siejin humbly said, I don't dare, I pray for the crown prince's praise. Xianyuan Qi clicked his tongue. Be careful, I will accuse you of forming a clique for personal gain in front of His Majesty. Then Prince Qi must prepare sufficient evidence in advance. Siejin smiled lightly. After all, the crime of falsely accusing a court official should not be light. Xianyuan Qi snorted lightly, turned around and left gracefully and calmly. The court will start early tomorrow morning, right? Mo Lingon looked up at the sky. I've watched all the excitement and performed the drama with you. I have to go to the palace. While the master is still free today, I will report everything to him in detail. I'll see what instructions he has, and then go home and have a good sleep. I'll go with you. Chu Nanyi stood up, straightened his robe, and looked like a gentleman. I'll go check the pulse of His Majesty and the master. After saying that, the two turned to look at Siejin at the same time. What about you? Go together. Siejin shook his head. I have to go to the western suburbs military camp. I'll go to court tomorrow and accompany Yao Yao tonight. Go to the military camp. Mo Lingon frowned. This is it suitable? What do you know? Siejin glanced at him. I just want to show my consideration and virtue in front of the Black Obsidian Army, and establish my authority for Yao Yao, so that the generals under his command will not think that their generals have been wronged and become the little wives of others. Chu Nanyi heard this and smiled gently. Master Ju is indeed becoming more and more like a good wife and mother. Congratulations, Mo Lingon said. Master Ju is talented, handsome, smart, and considerate. Prince Yao is so lucky. Chu Nanyi nodded in agreement. The only regret is that I can't have children. Mo Lingon sighed. It's really a pity. Siejin turned around and left, too lazy to pay attention to their boring words. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 709. The dull sound of war drums, accompanied by thunderous iron hooves, echoed continuously in the huge military camp. Xianyuan Yao, dressed in a silver uniform, stood on the general stage, holding a silver gun in his hand, staring solemnly at the cavalry passing by on the school grounds. Yufan, Sikong, prepare your troops and form a formation. Take orders. The silver spear flew across the sky, its momentum was like a rainbow, and waves of horse hooves moved in the wind. 7949 silver-armored soldiers came out with guns in hand and quickly took their positions. Other soldiers were added to guard the 7-star guard. The formations inside and outside the military camp were round, and the momentum suddenly changed. The entire military camp was filled with a murderous atmosphere. Your Majesty, the head of the 18 guards jumped to the high platform and reported respectfully, "Thank you, Master Jew, for coming." Xian Yuanyao frowned slightly and looked at him condescendingly. "What is he here for?" "I don't know," the leader of the 18 guards replied. "Maybe it's because of the rumors fermenting in the imperial city." "Nonsense," Xian Yuanyao frowned. "This important place in the military camp is not a place for him to fall in love. Let him leave immediately. My subordinates are afraid of Mr. Xie's 9th master's temper." Xian Yuanyao raised his head and glanced at the confrontation between the two armies in the camp, and waved his hand. "Take him to my tent. I'll be there in half an hour." "Yes." The leader of the 18 guards quickly resigned and went outside the military camp. He said to Xiejin, who was waiting outside the military camp, "The prince is training troops. Today the two armies are facing each other. The prince is temporarily unable to get away, so he asked his subordinates to take Master Ju to wait in the tent." Xiejin nodded. "Excuse me." "You are welcome." Xiejin walked and said, "Have there been any rumors in the military camp in the past 2 days? The men in the army are too busy with drills all day long. When they have time, they would rather go to bed and have no interest in paying attention to any rumors." The leader of the 18 guards said, "In fact, Mr. Xie does not need to worry about this, and my eldest son will not suffer." The distraction of gossip. Xiejin was silent for a moment, feeling a little complicated. "Well, although the generals are brave and straightforward, and there are no twists and turns in their hearts, they may not be easy to accept the broken sleeves, but compared to the old and young men in the court who are immersed in the hobbies of 3 aunts and 6 wives all day long, they are obviously I didn't take these things seriously at all. Of course, it is also possible that Yao Yao deliberately practiced harshly, leaving no extra time for the soldiers who defended their home and country to think about things they had and didn't have. A peaceful sleep was a luxury when they were exhausted. How could they have so much energy to discuss so-called rumors?" The corner of Xiejin's lips raised slightly. Compared to summoning the young men from aristocratic families to sit by the lake and enjoy the cold breeze while admiring the flowers, Yao Yao's method was obviously more direct and effective. It did not require any extra effort at all. It could not only achieve the purpose of training, but also can successfully silence everyone. The military camp was tightly guarded, with patrolling guards everywhere. Xiejin followed the leader of the 18 guards, but was not stopped by anyone to question him. He reached the commander's tent all the way, opened the tent and entered. Xiejin subconsciously looked around. There were no extra furnishings, just a bed, a few desks, a huge sand table occupying half of the tent, and a sword and a bow hung on the wall. Xiejin walked to the sand table and looked at it. On the sand table was still the formation that Xian Yuanyao had deduced with his soldiers last night or in the morning. Xiejin couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth, imagining Xian Yuanyao in white robes and military uniforms standing there. The heroic figure pointing out the battlefield in front of the sand table, his eyes full of tenderness and pride. His little leopard should always shine brightly. He turned around and walked to the bed and sat down. Although the bed and quilts were not as good as those in the house, they were all washed and neatly folded. Xiejin seemed to be able to smell the light when he pulled the quilt. He leaned on the bedside, thinking that the little leopard would not come back for half an hour, and planned to close his eyes and sleep. "Excuse me, go and do your work first," he said to the leader of the 18 guards, "don't pay attention to me anymore." The leader of the 18 guards said, "I will stay outside the tent. If you need anything, you can call me." Xiejin originally wanted to say that he didn't need to be guarded, but he thought that although his face was rampant in the imperial city, the military camp was a place with strict military discipline. Most of the people here didn't know him. If someone came into the tent and saw him, it would be troublesome to arrest him as a spy or an assassin and to question him. So Xiejin nodded, "Thank you very much." Sleeping on Xian Yuanyao's bed, covered with his quilt and pillowed on his pillow, Xiejin couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth, feeling an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. Soldiers know time very accurately. If Xian Yuanyao said half an hour, it means half an hour. When the respectful salute of the leader of the 18 guards was heard outside, and he deliberately raised his voice, Xiejin woke up from his dream in an instant, stood up neatly, folded the quilt, put the pillow away, and stood up to straighten his robe. He was convinced, and then he saw the big tent being opened. Xian Yuanyao, dressed in a silver-white military uniform, walked in. He had a slender figure and handsome features, and was followed by 4 generals, all of whom had serious expressions. Yao Xiejin spoke warmly, the smile on his face was just right and gentle, and he stepped forward to wipe Xian Yuanyao's sweat. "Did you have a hard time training? Are you tired?" The 4 generals were petrified on the spot. Xian Yuanyao stared at him. "What are you doing?" Xiejin pretended not to see the 4 people turned into stone sculptures, and continued to smile gently. "I miss you, come and see you. Outsiders are not allowed to enter this important area of the military camp." Xian Yuanyao's tone was solemn and threatening. "This will not happen again." Xiejin nodded, "Yes." The 4 generals looked at each other with expressions that were hard to describe. Xian Yuanyao didn't have any special expression. He pointed at Xiejin and said, "Xiejin, the legitimate son of Prime Minister Xie, is the daughter-in-law of this general, Xian Yuan Xie, granted by the Queen." After the words fell, the expressions of the 4 generals became more subtle. "Your Highness is right." Xiejin nodded, "I am the daughter-in-law granted by the Queen to the Prince." One of the generals, Yu Fan, frowned slightly. "I heard that the 9th master of the Xie family is unruly and noble, and never takes anyone seriously. Why is he interested in learning to be humble now?" Xiejin sighed faintly. "Who dares not to obey the marriage granted by the Queen?" Hearing this, Yu Fan couldn't help but glance at Xian Yuanyao. "Well, they followed here just to see the 9th master of the Xie family. Originally, Xian Yuanyao didn't let anyone come, but he couldn't resist the curiosity of his soldiers about Xiejin, so he followed to see it. He didn't expect to see such a scene. It seems that the general is the husband, but it is normal. A military general is full of vigor and has experienced life and death battles on the battlefield. It is impossible for him to be treated as a little daughter-in-law." The generals felt relieved immediately and stopped disturbing the 2 of them. They left tactfully. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 710. Xiejin watched them leave, raised his eyebrows, and deepened his smile. "Yao, how did I behave?" "Not bad." Xian Yuanyao walked to the sand table. "But why did you come to the military camp suddenly?" "Originally, I wanted to see Yao's heroic spirit during military training, but when I thought of the rules in the military camp, I just stayed here and waited for you." Xiejin followed him, stood beside him, and leaned in for a kiss. His face said, "It's mainly because I'm afraid something bad will happen in the military camp, and I want to come over to support you. It seems like I'm worrying too much right now." "Do you think the soldiers in the military camp are like those 3 ants and 6 women in the imperial city?" Xian Yuanyao glanced at him. "The soldiers are heroes who protect their families and their country, and they are not so narrow-minded." Xiejin nodded, "Yes, Yao is right." Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment and coughed lightly. "But you did a good job just now. You confirmed the fact that your little wife is a daughter-in-law. It deserves praise." Xiejin smiled with his eyebrows slightly curved. "Then how do Yao plan to reward me?" Xian Yuanyao frowned. This is a military camp, please don't give me some messy thoughts. Where did Yao Yao go? Xiejin cried out, and couldn't help but want to kiss him again. Am I so ignorant? Xian Yuanyao was speechless. Well, in general, although Xiejin seems unreliable most of the time, he is not unreasonable. You have to go to court starting tomorrow, and I can't leave the military camp for the time being. Xian Yuanyao thought for a while. Let's wait until this period of time passes. Xiejin made a request, I will stay here tonight. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Just stay here for one night and promise not to do anything. Xiejin raised his hand and swore in an extremely sincere tone, just sleep. Xian Yuanyao disagreed, my bed is too small to accommodate 2 people. It doesn't matter, I'll make the floor. Xian Yuanyao glared coldly, making a floor in the middle of winter? Are you desperate for your life? I'm strong, it doesn't matter. Wait until this period of time passes, Xian Yuanyao said calmly, otherwise we won't see each other in the next 6 months. Xiejin felt wronged. Also, I haven't even washed my face, so don't kiss me again, it's not too dirty either. Xiejin couldn't help but laugh again, I don't dislike Yao Yao. Xian Yuanyao frowned more and more, I found that you really looked like a little wife today, not just pretending. Why are you so clingy? Xiejin looked at him helplessly, Yao Yao doesn't miss me at all. Xian Yuanyao was silent. I'll ask someone to bring you some water to wash your face, Xiejin said, I can also help you wash your feet at night. Xian Yuanyao's eyebrows twitched, I want someone to throw you out. Yao Yao is so cute. Xiejin reached out and pulled out a brocade box from his sleeve, this is Xian Yuanqi's gift to us. A congratulatory gift? Out of curiosity, Xian Yuanyao took the initiative to open the brocade box. When he saw the jade mandarin duck lying on the velvet cloth, he raised his eyebrows slightly, this thing should be very valuable. It is indeed valuable. Xiejin picked up the jade mandarin duck and looked at the bright part carefully, the texture of this jade is fine and transparent, the color is bright and lustrous, and the color is extremely beautiful. You can tell it is worth a lot at a glance, the key meaning is good. What does it mean? Yuanyang. Xiejin handed the jade Yuanyang to him, you can't miss it, right? Xian Yuanyao stared at the mandarin ducks with no expression for a long time, I remember that the mandarin ducks are 1 male and 1 female. I have never seen 2 male mandarin ducks form a pair and grow old together. After a pause, he realized that his statement was wrong, and he corrected it slowly, the male is a mandarin duck, and the female is a duck. Which of us is the male and which is the female? Xiejin blinked. And the meaning of mandarin ducks is deceptive. They are actually the most flirtatious birds, Xian Yuanyao said lightly, the male birds will be very close to the female during the period when she is giving birth to offspring. However, after that, the male bird will quickly find a new love, no longer care about your partner's life or death, you can even abandon your own children, and start a new relationship at any time, just like you did before. Xiejin suffered from Qiyu for no reason and was strangely silent for a long time. To be honest, it didn't matter whether the Yuanyang thing was true love or a beauty imagined by people. He just didn't expect Xian Yuanyao to correct the mistake so seriously and ruin the beautiful atmosphere. And brought up all his previous affairs? Xiejin suddenly felt that the valuable jade mandarin duck in his hand was a bit hot to the touch and even very annoying. He thought to himself that he could just throw away the mandarin duck pillow from Mo Lingan and the mandarin duck pen washer from Chu Nanyi. What's wrong? Xian Yuanyao turned around and looked at his silent expression, thinking he was disappointed, I was joking. Xiejin raised his eyes and looked at him, are you kidding? Yes. Xian Yuanyao reached out and took the jade mandarin duck, along with the brocade box, it doesn't matter whether the mandarin duck is infatuated or ruthless. What's important is that the meaning and blessing are beautiful, not to mention that this is the best jade, so it's worth it, keep it well. Xiejin didn't know what to say for a moment. Xian Yuanyao closed the brocade box, turned around and walked aside to wash his face, Are you hungry? Xiejin said nothing. I'll ask someone to bring some food over. Xian Yuanyao turned his head, and the smile on his lips became gentler. Although the food in the military camp is not as good as at home, I can only feel sorry for you to eat a little shabby with me. Xiejin didn't care about food. What he cared about was whether he could stay overnight tonight. If you insist on staying, it's not impossible, Xian Yuanyao said, but I have to discuss tomorrow's training plan with several generals in the evening, and I may not come back until very late. Come back late? Xiejin frowned and pointed in the direction of the sand table. Isn't the sand table here? Wouldn't that disturb you from rest? Xian Yuanyao said, I can go to Yu Fan's tent. There will be more people. I'm afraid you will feel uncomfortable. Xiejin sighed, forget it, I'll have dinner with you and then go back. Xian Yuanyao glanced at him, walked over and raised his chin. Are you angry? Xiejin shook his head, no. Then why did you suddenly change your mind? Xiejin pointed to his face, wash your face clean, I want to kiss him again. Xian Yuanyao. I have to think about you. Xiejin hugged his waist and touched his face affectionately. The military camp is an important place where military discipline needs to be strictly observed. It is not a place for me to mess around. Although I really want to stay here with you, we can't miss your business, and we can't let the generals think that you are a general who doesn't distinguish between public and private matters. Xian Yuanyao hummed, and his voice became softer unconsciously. I will try my best to spend some time with you.